Lot 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Open Marketing TV. I'm here with Evan Kuepers, Enterprise Marketing Director, Western European Region, Dell. Robin, Michael Dell is one of the few CEOs that actively follow the open source developments. How has that influenced the vision of Dell as a company? What can we expect from Dell in the field of open source, and what will be filled in by partners of Dell?
Okay, so it's not only that we are following the open source community and what's happening over there from a software development point of view. We have been actively participating in all kind of open source initiatives in the past. Open source comes and goes from a discussion point of view. What is very important for Dell is that we are listening to them very, very well. And if they think and see that there is a business benefits for them to work with open source tools, programs, and operating systems, as Dell, we want to support those customers in the best way we can. A couple of years ago, the discussion was much around the desktop, open source on the desktop. Nowadays, with cloud implementations and a lot of cloud builders as being Dell's customers, we see the OpenStack and the open source community very much focused on that area of the part of the business. As you might know, Dell is in transition, and I personally think we already have established that transition. Coming from a more PC-oriented company to a more data center company, we have to be much more involved in open source to be successful in that data center and to support those customers. Now, those customers could be cloud builders, that could be hosters, or anybody else who offering a service through the net to anybody that wants to use it, typically the end user. Having that one said, you can say you're interested to it, you want to support it. How do you actually do it? Not too long ago, we have announced the establishment of a software division within Dell. So although we have been involved in open source for a long, long time, it mainly came from the R&D division, which was very much hardware oriented. Now with this new software division within Dell, you can expect much, much more coming out of that division as a contribution to the open source community with much more tools and open software support than we might have given in the past.
How can the enterprise benefit from that, from your solutions?
No, as I just said, if we talk about the business, typically you talk about larger and maybe some of the mid-market customers, which we see as a business who are running their business on Dell infrastructure. If they decide that open source is the best platform for them, if it's adding a true value to them, you need to think about a couple of things, which is very close to Dell's DNA. It's about the ease of use, how can you make it simple to use, the ease of management, how can you quickly deploy, and the ease of doing business with Dell. Particularly on the first 2 points, it's very important for us how we can help customers accelerate the deployment and make it easier for them to use the equipment. Because every time anybody makes something complex, there is a cost associated to it. So for us, it's very, very important to help those business. How can you quickly deploy an open source kind of stack within their environment? Because although people think open source might be somewhat easy, reality might be slightly different. There might be a level of complexity from an accountability point of view. Where do you go if something is not working? You need to have a good, strong partner sitting next to you or behind you to help you out. So taking everything into account, we are providing tools to that community, to our customers, to help them quickly deploy, easy the management. And ultimately, that should result in a most efficient infrastructure to run their business on. So I would say that that's the key point of Dell where we want to help our customers with. And that's where the business value is all about.
Very good. One of the pain points in big data center computing is storage. A recent survey based on the Freedom of Information Act of Nexenta showed that prices per terabyte can be quite exuberant. How can open source systems of Dell contribute to the lowering of the cost of storage in the enterprise?
Okay. Yeah, data is really exploding at the moment. Customers are facing huge data growth. All the analysts, a lot of press, everybody is calling out the data keeps growing and it will continue growing in the next coming years. So the key question comes up, how do you manage that and what's the most efficient way? And most of the data currently is stored on certain infrastructures which are being more or less legacy. Everybody knows a storage area network. Other people might know a network attached storage. Other companies might have gone in the past for direct attached storage. So there might be island or silos of storage in current infrastructures at a customer side. So when you talk about big data, it's getting access to that data to get the information out there, which might be hidden. But if you got different silos within your company, it's not that easy to get to those data points for what we call getting the data insights. So the trick here is to get a common access layer where all the data becomes transparent for the user. Typically, this is called unified storage. Unified storage is something that a lot of companies are calling out. And we as Dell have unified storage solutions as well. A good example here when we talk about open source is Nexenta. Nexenta is a very strong partner for us, which provides a unified layer to our storage offerings. So take as an example Compellant, one of our lines of business for storage. We adding a layer, Nexenta, on top of it, where you get unified storage. So it becomes a little bit easier for the customers to have one single protocol, one single file system to write to disk, to store their data, and to work with it. Then the analyst, if you have the right software tools, can get that data easily out of their infrastructure, out of storage arrays, and do whatever they want to do. But it doesn't stop there when we talk about big data, because storing data is one part of it. The other one is how do you analyze it? And if you look at the community of BI tools, where all the intelligence is, where all the software vendors are, there are basically two directions here. You can either go for the traditional ones, for what I would call the classic BI, business intelligence, or you go to which more is on the big data side, is more the revolutionary approach. And if you do that, you need to have very modern, state-of-the-art technology. And the open source community seems to be ahead of anybody else over there. So there are a lot of players in that field where Dell has a partnership with at the moment, where we build, let's say an example here, an Hadoop cluster, where we can have a very high compute node with storage, where you can run an analysis from. So with that, I would say that's where the interest is from Dell. That's where we work with partners when it comes to big data and open source, and that's the path we want to continue.
Thank you. That's very impressive. It brings us on how do you handle open source computing and big data. I noticed that Cloudera is one of your partners. Can you tell me something about that?
Cloudera is a good example that fits into that story that I just gave to you. When you talk about analyzing data and building those Hadoop clusters, you need to have a set of partners, and Cloudera is just one of them. I don't think it's beneficial to call them out, all the partners we have over here, but we have a good set of partners, which we call the Data Insights ecosystem, and all those partners work very much together, led by Dell. As Dell, we are certifying our systems, we're testing our systems, we're making sure that they are qualified to do the job in the best way, and therefore those partners are then part of that ecosystem. And then we have a go-to-market strategy with them, and that varies by region how we do that. And in some cases, Dell takes the full lead, can implement and deploy all the systems. But there might be countries where we do it in close relationship with one of those partners. Due to their expertise they have, it might be a situation where they have a services organization in that country where we don't, and then we can leverage that partnership to deploy. Especially in Europe, where there are many smaller countries, sometimes you need the expertise of a certain partnership in country. And it doesn't have to be that partner itself. It could also be a reseller or a value-added distributor or anybody else who is very well established in that company, can basically guarantee the quality. And Dell wants to work and does work with those partners to deploy all those solutions. So it starts at the top with the infrastructure, the reference architecture. Then it comes to the ecosystem, signing up the right partners for the right solution to solve the customer pain points. And when it comes to the go-to-market, it's working on what serves those market best, either direct, through a channel partner, through a distributor, or anybody else who has a value add in the whole chain on bringing big data or data insights alive.
Thank you. When I come into a open source conference and I name a brand, first thing that's asked me is what are they giving back to the community? I noticed that Dell has a impressive history on that point, with things like Zookeeper, Flume, Squoop, etc. Can you tell something about how Dell fits into a open source community?
Yeah, so when it comes to giving back, you have to think about, what is most efficient for Dell to do. And if you work with that ecosystem, if you work with those partners, questions pop up about, okay, we see a customer pain point, we jointly want to help, how do we want to do it? Dell being very strong from an R&D perspective in designing the hardware, building the hardware, then adding the software to it and testing and certifying it. But in some cases, there might be a little bit of a gray area where you say, is this a Dell responsibility or is this an open source community? And sometimes that answer is not very clear. So what we do as Dell, if we think that there is an opportunity for us here to go in that gray zone and to help that community, we're happy to give back whatever is needed to that community. You called out a couple examples. The best example to me is Crowbar. Crowbar is a utility, a deployment utility for the open source stack and therefore automatically for the open source community, where we can very easily replicate and deploy nodes within the Hadoop clusters. So coming back to the earlier point about big data, let's say you got 100 nodes in there and you want to have another 50 in there. Instead of configure them manually, you can now use Crowbar, and then it automatically replicates that configuration on the next 50 ones that you want to deploy, and it goes totally automatic. Now that's a good example of a utility, a tool that we have given back to the open source community. Say, hey, if you want to do this, this is the right reference architecture. These are, according to Dell, the best products and solutions, and here are the tools that can help you, making it easier for you to roll it out, to maintain and to manage that solution.
Sounds great, and that's a great perspective. Thank you for the interview.
You're welcome. Okay.